Good morning from Brian
and Chris.
This is the Society News for Friday the 24th of May 2019. Tuesday 28th of May. There will be a coffee morning held at Costa Coffee High Street in Ryde. We will be there between 10:30 and 11:45 a.m. Refreshments are available to purchase direct from the coffee shop. This coffee morning takes place on the last Tuesday of each month. There will be a coffee morning held at the End of the Line Cafe in Freshwater, 10:30 a.m. till 12 noon. Refreshments are available to purchase direct from the cafe. The coffee morning takes place on the last Tuesday of each month. The swimming group are swimming at the waterside pool in Ryde. The pool is closed to the public whilst the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you get in and out of the pool, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the swimming group, please call Sight for Wight first to notify us of your swimming ability. You need to register with the office at Millbrook House first to be able to swim with the group.
Wednesday the 29th of May. The weekly coffee morning will be held at Millbrook House this week from 10:30 a.m. There will also be our low vision drop-in between 10 o'clock and 12 noon. This is a weekly event to allow you to view and try the low vision equipment we have at the Society without the need for an appointment.
Thursday, 30th of May. The Thursday social group are meeting at Millbrook House. The group meets from 10:30 a.m. till 2 p.m. You can knit or just have a chat. Then later in the afternoon, volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics.
Friday the 31st of May. The Striders group will be meeting for a walk around the Newtown area. Lunch is booked for 12:30 p.m. at the Sportsman's Rest. If you would like to join the Striders group, then please contact the Society on 522205 or email members@iwsb.org.uk.
Any other news? The Freshwater Audio Book Group will be meeting on Tuesday the 28th of May at the Library, Mower Place, Freshwater. They are a friendly group who welcome new members. They meet from 11 a.m. for about an hour. Refreshments are provided.
This week's In Touch. Exercising your right to vote and to exercise. In Touch listeners share their voting experiences, and one Australian citizen tells how she was able to vote independently in the recent federal election. The European Blind Union has researched the main accessible forms of voting throughout Europe, and the results are surprising. A gym in Uckfield, Sussex, has listened to the needs of one visually impaired woman, made some small changes and enabled her to exercise comfortably and confidently. We find out how they did it. The presenter is Peter Wight and the producer is Lee Kumutat.
The Isle of Wight County Press, Friday 24th of May 2019. Drink, drive, blight. Police warning of dangers following spate of offences. Following a spate of drink driving cases, the police have issued a warning of the dangers of driving while under the influence. In this week's paper alone, the County Press has published 4 drink driving court reports. Drink drivers feature almost daily on the island's court lists and are banned from the roads every week. Isle of Wight Sergeant Simon Morgan said, "Even a small amount of alcohol or drugs in your system can affect your ability to drive safely, and can have devastating consequences. People who drive while under the influence are not only putting their own lives at risk, but also the lives of others who are innocently going about their daily lives. Being caught in control of any motor vehicle under the influence of drugs or alcohol could destroy your life. You could face a criminal conviction, possible prison term, driving ban, and could lose your job. We work closely with our partners at Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue and the Isle of Wight Ambulance Service to deliver educational inputs at schools across the island. Part of this focuses on the dangers of drink and drug driving. The island's rate of children killed or seriously injured on the roads is significantly higher than comparative areas, at 33.2 per 100,000 children. The island's Community Safety Partnership has identified road safety as a priority. In this week's paper, court reports include a repeat drink driver who was banned for 3 years, that's on page 2, and a mother who drove with her children in the car after drinking 3 bottles of Prosecco, that's on page 5. One man mistakenly believed he was on private land, that's on page 8, and another drove drunk after forgetting his daughter's birthday presents. He decided to drive home to pick them up after drinking, that's on page 14. Last week, the county press reported the case of Christopher Barber, a 5 times drink driver who was jailed for 26 weeks and given a 5-year ban after island magistrates finally lost patience with him. Barber, 52, of Langard Road, Shanklin, claimed he had not been out, but police found a takeaway kebab in his kitchen that suggested otherwise. He was more than 3 times over the drink drive limit. Presiding Magistrate Gillian Dale said in court, "This is one of the worst cases we have ever seen. It is horrendous."
Sight for Wight has 2020 vision. Islanders have been asked to help Sight for Wight raise £100,000. The Sight Loss charity hopes to raise the cash next year for an education programme and an outreach vehicle. Chief Executive Miriam Tong said, "We want to raise awareness of what we can all do to promote avoidable sight loss and raise awareness of the support and services that are already offered by Sight for Wight, an Isle of Wight independent charity." Our 2020 Vision project is exciting and ambitious. We want to continue supporting the thousands of islanders currently affected by sight loss, registered as sight impaired, partially sighted, or severely sight impaired, blind, and reach thousands more with awareness on how we can help protect our sight, often with simple lifestyle choices. The education programme aims to reach all pupils on the island aged between 5 and 7 years old, delivering inspiring, engaging and fun learning for pupils about sight loss. The programme will also benefit visually impaired islanders through widening understanding of the impact of sight loss and increasing empathy with those who experience it. Ms Tong said, "While the fundraising target of £100,000 to enable these plans is ambitious, with the support of the community we are confident we will succeed." She also announced that Isle of Wight High Sheriff Jeff Underwood has already kick-started the project by granting £500. To help or donate, email 2020 vision at iwsb.org.uk.
I won't let cancer stop me, says Chris. A gruelling cycle ride was completed against all the odds by Chris Peck, who has refused to let his cancer diagnosis stop him doing what he loves. His determination to complete the 7 Hills Challenge recently led him to being given the Legends Award by organisers. Out of the 150 people who rode from Freshwater Bay to the Isle of Wight Airport Sandown, White Mountain and GP Sports chose Chris as the ride's first legend. They said, "We can no longer run the event as a race, but riders are keen to get their best time possible. As there is no official prize for winning, we had created an award to acknowledge an outstanding rider. This first year it went to Chris Peck, as he is currently battling bowel cancer. We were surprised to see him enter, let alone finish this gruelling event. Chris has been undergoing treatment and rode in the challenge after 5 weeks of radiotherapy and chemotherapy. We asked Chris what made him want to take part in it, to which he replied, "I always do, I didn't want to miss out." He rode the 26 miles with his friend Dom Ward, who kept him at a steady pace, as he knew Chris would ride harder than he probably should. Chris, 47, of Carisbrooke, is currently waiting to have an operation to remove the tumour after being diagnosed in July 2018. He said, "Cycling is my thing, and I've done this challenge quite a few times before. The main challenge this time was to finish it. It was hard going, and it was difficult to see everyone passing me, but I had to let them go, and I eventually reached the finish in 3 hours 15 minutes. I wanted to show that you can still do stuff even when you've been diagnosed with something that can kill you. It's not the end of the world, and you can keep positive." Chris, who owns haulage firm Pex Limited, also completed Walk the Wight this year.
Award for Innovators. Isle of Wight Eco Clothing Company, Rapa Nui, has won the Queen's Award for Innovation. It received the award for its T-Mill brand, an online platform that enables people to design and sell their own T-shirts using the company's resources and production facilities. The team, who will be heading to an awards ceremony at Buckingham Palace, was recognised for the culmination of 10 years' work, essentially redesigning the way the fashion industry works in a bid to make it truly sustainable. Through improved design and technology, Rapa Nui, which powers its freshwater factory with renewable energy, applies circular economy principles at every stage of production. Currently, more than 100 billion items of clothing are made every year, but a truck full of textiles is burned or buried every second, and Rapa Nui aims to make such waste a thing of the past. The linear clothing industry, which takes resources and creates waste, is expected to triple by 2050. In a bid to combat that linear economy, T-Mill T-shirts are designed and manufactured to be remade and reused. Customers are urged to adopt those practices with money off future purchases. Martin Drake-Knight, co-founder of Rapa Nui and T-Mill Tech, said, "Slowing down fast fashion won't fix it, but when we took material people normally throw away at the end and make new products from it at the start, it changed everything. What is needed is the technology to make the reverse logistics of fashion possible and economical. That's exactly what we've done. Celebrities who have backed their work include supermodel Kate Moss and Doctor Who and the thick of it actor Peter Capaldi.
Ferry failures due to assembly errors. Engine failures on board Whitelink's White Sky ferry have been blamed on assembly errors at Volvo Penta, an interim report on the investigation has said. 2 catastrophic engine failures happened during crossings on the Lymington to Yarmouth route, one on August the 26th, 2018, and another on December the 14th, 2018. On August the 26th, a fireball engulfed the engine room as one of the ship's engines catastrophically failed as the vessel was preparing to enter the Lymington River. The engine was nearly new, having only accumulated 2,241 running hours since its installation. On December the 14th, another engine suffered a catastrophic failure as the vessel was closing on the berth at Lymington. This engine was also new, having only run 380 hours. The technical investigation team from the Marine Accident Investigation Branch, MAIB, identified 2 other recent non-catastrophic engine failures that occurred on board White Sky's sister vessel, White Light. This recently published interim report found the December failure was due to assembly error during build at the Volvo Penta factory. The report also found that one of the non-catastrophic failures on White Light was due to assembly error during overhaul work conducted by the local Volvo Penta dealer. The report said, although direct causes have not been established for all 5 engines, the investigation has identified several underlying factors that might have contributed to this unusually high incidence of failures. Following the failure of White Sky in December, Whitelink withdrew W-class vessels from service. After discussions between Whitelink, the MCA, Lloyd's Register and Volvo Penta, a mitigation plan was put in place to enable the vessels to return to service. The initial mitigation measures included weather and engine load constraints, enhanced engine monitoring and shutdown procedures, and restrictions on personnel entering the machinery spaces when the main engines were running. The report said, following the discovery of the assembly error, Volvo Penta has strengthened its standard operation process to prevent this from occurring again. Volvo Penta confirmed the same error had not been repeated on engines manufactured around the same time. Whitelink Chief Executive Keith Greenfield said, "The investigation is complex and not yet complete. However, we have been able to ensure that the manufacturing and rebuild assembly errors are not present on any of our other Volvo Penta engines. We continue to work with the MAIB, Volvo Penta and other parties to establish root causes for all engine failures in 2017 and 2018. Whitelink has excellent engine reliability on all its other ships and routes, and we are working hard to eliminate the problems we have had on our Lymington-Yarmouth route. Over the last 3 months, the Lymington-Yarmouth route has performed with 98.7% reliability including cancellations caused by adverse weather.
Tributes paid to D-Day role played by Chine. The crucial role Shanklin Chine played during the Second World War was remembered at a special event on Sunday. Anglo-American wartime comradeship and sacrifice was marked by a series of events as a large gathering of invited guests recalled the role played by the Chine in preparations for the Dieppe raid of 1942 and the D-Day invasion of Hitler's fortress Europe in 1944. The programme was primarily organised as part of the 75th anniversary commemoration of D-Day. The dramatic terrain of the Chine's coastal ravine had proved an ideal training ground for detachments of Royal Marines and US Army Rangers during the build-up to the Normandy landings of June the 6th, 1944, when men billeted in the island towns perfected a range of climbing and abseiling skills. The Chine had already fulfilled the same preparatory function 2 years earlier, when men of 40 Royal Marine Commando trained there for the raid on Dieppe in August 1942. A tragically ill-fated military venture with heavy Allied casualties which, nonetheless, enabled vital lessons to be learnt in planning for D-Day. A collaboration between the Chine and Royal Marine Veterans Association, Sunday's events included the formal opening by Susie Sheldon, Isle of Wight Lord Lieutenant, of a D-Day 75 exhibition in the Heritage Centre, which also recalls the Chine's pivotal role in the top-secret Operation Pluto, Pipeline Under the Ocean, project to fuel the Allied advance from the invasion beaches. During an outdoor service of remembrance and thanksgiving, a tree commemorating the D-Day role of the US Rangers and those among its numbers whose lives were lost was planted by Lieutenant Colonel Michael Skaggs, Marine Attaché representing the USA Ambassador to Britain. Wreaths were laid in memory of all those who made the ultimate sacrifice. The service included poetry readings and summaries of the wartime exploits of the Royal Marines and its commando forces who trained at the Chine. And a note underneath says, our special edition, 96-page publication, D-Day 75, is available from today. It tells the story of D-Day at home and on the battlefront, with features from across Hampshire, Wiltshire, Dorset and the Isle of Wight. It is available at the County Press Office and other outlets.
Mixed reaction to Culture Centre idea. Proposals have been put forward for a waterfront culture centre in East Cowes, but branded absolutely ridiculous by a leading businessman. The East Cowes Arts and Culture Group, ECACG, hopes to work with the V&A and other international museums to transform the Columbine site at Venture Keys into a gallery similar to the newly opened Tate Dundee and Turner Gallery Margate. But Chief Executive of White Shipyard, Peter Morton, said it was absolutely ridiculous, as it would displace the marine industry based at the site. Isle of Wight Council plans to move the Venture Keys businesses to Kingston, and they've yet to materialise. Mr. Morton, who said the Kingston site was unsuitable due to a lack of deep water access, branded the group harebrained do-gooders. But the ECACG's Sharon Lake said the scheme could prove a viable alternative to housing should the marine industry move off the site in the future. Ms. Lake said, Mr. Morton has said the site is too small and if the business moves out, our concern is council will look to maximise profits for the site and build on it. She said the culture centre was a long-term aspiration and agreed the Kingston site was not suitable for marine industry. She said, "I'm equally frustrated there's no strategy for these businesses. They have been treated appallingly, and I hope they have many more successful years at the Columbine site." The group's plans have been backed by East Cowes Town Council, the East Cowes Business Association, MP Bob Seeley and English Heritage, which invited members to present their ideas at Osborne House.
1/3 of island children living in poverty. More than 1/3 of children on the island are growing up in poverty, new figures have revealed. Numbers have grown by almost 5% in just 1 year. In 2018, there were 29.5% of children living in poverty on the island, compared to 34% today. The data, published by the End Child Poverty Coalition, highlights how worrying levels of child poverty vary across Britain. It also shows poverty is on the rise and rising fastest in places where it is already highest. In Hampshire, levels were worst in Portsmouth and Southampton, with 36% of children living in poverty. In some areas of London, child poverty levels were as high as 59%. Chair of the End Child Poverty Coalition said, "We know what causes child poverty and we know how to end it. We know the income of less well-off families has been hit by severe real-term cuts in benefits and by higher housing costs. And we know that work alone does not guarantee a route out of poverty, with 2/3 of child poverty occurring in working families. Yet, in many areas, growing up in poverty is not the exception. It's the rule, with more children expected to get swept up in poverty in the coming years, with serious consequences for their life chances. Policymakers can no longer deny the depth of the problem or abandon entire areas to rising poverty. The government must respond with a credible child poverty reduction strategy. Growing up in poverty means growing up trapped. It restricts a child's chances of doing well at school, of living a healthy and happy life, and of finding well-paid work as adults. We urgently need the government to set a course of action that will free our children from the grip of poverty.
Huge rise in electric cars on Isle of Wight roads. The number of electric cars on the island has skyrocketed in the last 7 years, growing by almost 11,000%. In 2011, there were just 2 electric cars on the island, but by the end of last year there were 221. With just 17 charging points across the island, the average distance between points is 2 miles. The figures are in line with the national average. More than 2/3 of local authorities have fewer than 20 charging locations. Although the Department for Transport, DFT, claims 80% of electrical vehicle charging takes place at home, drivers who do not have access to off-street parking or who do not own their own property face difficulties owning an electric car. While a large number of charging stations are installed privately, the government has been encouraging businesses, homeowners and local authorities to install more charging points by launching various funding grants and schemes. The RAC described the provision for electric cars as a postcode lottery with patchy coverage across the UK. Last month, the Isle of Wight Council announced free 12-month parking permits for electric vehicle owners. Transport Cabinet member Councillor Ian Ward said the council is forward-looking and is making plans to meet the future growth in demand for charging electric vehicles. A DFT spokesperson said, "Our vision is to have one of the best infrastructure networks in the world for electric vehicles, and we want charge points to be accessible, affordable and secure." Our Road to Zero strategy sets out our commitment to massively expand electrical vehicle infrastructure, while the £400 million Public-Private Charging Infrastructure Investment Fund will see thousands more charge points installed across the UK. This is part of a £1.5 billion programme of investment to put the UK at the forefront of the transition to zero-emission vehicles.
4 arrests following County Lines drug raids. 4 drug raids were carried out on the island and 4 arrests made as part of a police crackdown on County Lines dealing. All 4 people were subsequently released without charge following last week's operation, although they remain under investigation. In addition, 6 grams of Class A amphetamine, a small amount of cannabis, 8 mobile phones and £150 in cash were seized. 4 vulnerable people, not necessarily those who were arrested, who were at risk of drug-related harm, were safeguarded. Police also visited 26 schools, 28 taxi firms, 32 hotels and 7 landlords to discuss the risks posed by County Lines drug dealers who bring drugs to Hampshire and the Isle of Wight from other cities using dedicated mobile phones and exploiting vulnerable people. In total, across the 2 counties, 48 arrests were made and 28 vulnerable people safeguarded during the operation. Police seized more than £17,000 in cash, 39 phones and 6 knives. Chief Inspector Mark Lynch, who led the operation, said, "County Lines is a continuous threat to our communities. These drug dealers bring misery, fear and violence with them. They don't care what damage they cause." These organised crime groups use County Lines as a business model to prey on the most vulnerable. There is often an increase in violent crime as rival networks come into conflict. Superintendent Matt Reeves, tactical lead for drug-related harm, said, "What is often overlooked when we talk about drug dealing networks is that there are genuine victims that get caught up in it. Hardened criminals will deliberately target the most vulnerable and exploit them to carry out their illegal work. These are often young people and adults with mental health, addictions or unmanageable debt. Many of our successes are a direct result of information provided to us by the public. It is important anyone who has any suspicions or concerns around the supply of drugs reports it. Anyone with information can call the police on 101 or Crime Stoppers anonymously on 0800 555 111.
New vegan beer out of this world. Goddard's Brewery has produced a gluten-free and vegan-friendly lager. Pint of Planet, anyone? Brewer Joss Davies is behind the top-secret recipe for the lager, which is clean and crisp with a smooth bitterness, sitting somewhere between a Pilsner and Vienna lager. It has been brewed with local malted barley known as Planet and has an aromatic expression of fruity and herbal notes. Joss said it was great to be let loose to spend the last 7 months trying new ingredients, brewing methods old and new, to create this refreshing, flavoursome lager. Xavier Baker, managing director at Goddard, said, "You may be wondering why gluten-free and why vegan-friendly. We've been inundated with requests to bring you something that fits this criteria, and Planet Lager has been the perfect way to fill the gap that there has been within our range." Goddard's brewery, founded by Anthony Goddard, was established in 1993 and is the oldest brewery in operation on the Isle of Wight.
Dad drove drunk for gifts. Forgetting his child's birthday presents and making the decision to drive back for them after a few drinks led to a court appearance last week for Ryde man Chris Busson. Busson, 36, of Colnuts Road, admitted driving in Ryde on April the 28th with a breath alcohol level of 79. The legal limit is 35. Anne Smout, prosecuting, said police caught him at 12:45 p.m. after seeing him swerving across the white lines. She said he smelled of alcohol and was not making a good deal of sense. Barry Arnott, for Busson, said the family had gone to Nodes Point to celebrate his daughter's birthday, but he left the balloons and presents at home. At first he had no intention of going back for them, but last thing at night he changed his mind so his daughter would have a surprise in the morning. He said the consequences of his foolishness could result in the loss of his employment, in which he is very well respected. He travels globally. He will not be able to go to America with a conviction, so will have to apply for a visa. And he cannot hire a car abroad anymore, which he has to for work. His actions also put a downer on his daughter's birthday. Busson was banned from driving for 17 months. He was fined £260 and ordered to pay £85 cost with a £30 surcharge.
Huge wartime mine detonated. Fishermen netted an unusual catch off the Needles on Saturday, a huge wartime sea mine. The 7-foot-long, £2,000 mine was detonated by the Royal Navy Explosive Ordnance Disposal Team the next day. Vessels were warned to stay away, and a 2 nautical mile exclusion zone was put in place around the fishing boat. HM Naval Base Portsmouth said, "Our bomb disposal experts, Southern Diving Unit 2, have done it again. Called out to a sea mine dredged up by a fishing vessel 3 nautical miles off the Isle of Wight, they safely placed it back on the seabed and carried out a controlled explosion. It was still carrying much of its original explosive material, so it created quite a splash. Happy Sunday, everyone. Hope yours also started with a boom."
Mum drove drunk with kids in car. A mother admitted drink driving while her children were in the car, Island magistrates heard. Lindsay Collins, 40, of Perone Way, was more than 3 times over the legal limit. Anne Smout, prosecuting at the Magistrates' Court last Tuesday, said mental health services had been called to Collins' home following concerns. The court heard that following a personal tragedy, Collins had turned to drink and started self-harming. On March the 17th, she took her children, put them in her white Range Rover and drove down the road before stopping. She later told police she had to get away from her husband. Oscar Vincent, for Collins, said she called the police herself and fully admitted driving the car. The court heard that she had drunk 3 bottles of Prosecco. She gave a breath alcohol reading of 123. The legal limit is 35. Mr. Vincent said she felt she had to remove herself and her children away from the property. The car was driven a really short distance, no more than 500 metres. She called the police and waited for them to arrive. She was placed in the cells overnight, which was a traumatic experience for her. He said Collins was fully engaging with Inclusion, the Isle of Wight's drug and alcohol support service. Sentencing was adjourned to June the 4th, giving probation officers time to meet with Collins and prepare a pre-sentence report. They will make recommendations on the most appropriate sentence she should receive when she is brought back before the court. Magistrates imposed an interim driving ban until Collins appears for sentencing.
Rebuild or refurb options on the cards for freshwater loos. Proposed new toilets at Freshwater Bay have been put on hold until the parish council decides whether to rebuild or refurbish them. The council has quotes for both options, ranging from £60,000 to £100,000. Chair Jill Kennett said, "Our deputy clerk will report with a small working party over the next couple of months and come back with its findings. We will have to take over the toilets from the Isle of Wight Council, but there is a clause in the lease which says they can claim them back at any time. Nothing will be signed off until this clause has been sorted. We will also be having a usage survey done on the toilets. They are obviously in demand when we have events here like Walk the Wight and during the summer. There are 4 ladies' toilets and 4 men's urinals with 3 cubicles, but if they were rebuilt, we would like to include disabled and baby changing facilities. The current urinals are an American design, which people do like, but they use a phenomenal amount of water when flushing, so they are not environmentally friendly. We have to make the right choice."
Come on in, the water's wonderful. 4 island beaches have been named among the best in the country. Shanklin, Sandown, Seagrove and Springvale have received seaside awards by Keep Britain Tidy. The charity's chief executive, Alison Ogden Newton, said, "The success in reaching the very high standards demanded is testament to those who work so hard to protect and improve our beaches." Shanklin Mayor, Councillor Steve Knight, said, "We are delighted to receive this prestigious award again." Visit Isle of Wight Managing Director Will Miles said, "This is fantastic news. To hear Sandown has been nationally recognised this year, joining Shanklin, Seagrove and Springvale in the Seaside Awards is amazing."
And it's goodbye for this week from Brian.
And also from Chris.
Hello everybody, this is Imelda.
And this is Lester, and we start with the readers' letters. And the first one is from Peter Gruner in Ryde. "Give the Queen a good old clean. Poor old Queen Victoria. It's her 200th birthday today, Friday. But in Ryde's town square, just outside the Co-op store, she looks decidedly weather-worn and in need of a good clean. A bust of her is positioned high up in an archway niche of brick and stone, a forgotten figure who has become a convenience for birds. Neither Ryde Town Council nor Isle of Wight Council claims to be responsible for her upkeep. Island Roads say she is not their responsibility. To quote the Queen, 'We are not amused.' The head and shoulders sculpture is actually a replica of the original Victoria bust created by E. Onslow Forbes for her Diamond Jubilee. The original bust was sited at Wight County Hospital, 1849 to 1992, and is now in the care of St Mary's Hospital, Newport. The replica went up in the square more than 20 years ago in 1996. If the replica, according to online information, was produced thanks to an amalgam of organisations, including the then Isle of Wight Healthcare Trust, Ryde Community Forum, the Isle of Wight Society, Ryde Group, and the Isle of Wight Council, with support from Summerfield Stores. Although she looks a mess, Victoria would have probably been philosophical. She once said, "The important thing is not what they think of me, but what I think of them."
And then the second letter is from A. Blackburn of Cowes. So many things wrong with plan. Let me get this right. The Isle of Wight Council may give permission for 2 new fast food outlets. So we have 4 in about half a square mile. Another food store with one already within 100 yards. I hope Asda object to this plan. Then destroy a sports ground, losing a place where lots of youth games are played, a community facility that is close to town. All this for so-called regeneration and economic gain. I think the only gain is to SCL, plus the chairman of the said sports ground. This could possibly be decided by one councillor. Are the rest of the council frightened to have their names put to it?
And this very brief letter, Eagle Knowledge, from Bruce Overton in Portsmouth. Having just read the passionate letter from Tim Bristow regarding the sea eagle, County Press 1705-19, I respectfully suggest he reads the several comments online from people who know something about the matter.
Graveyard fire, not only disrespectful. This letter is from Alison Pritchard of Portsfield. The decision to burn a chest of drawers along with other rubbish in St Mary's Church graveyards, as reported in the County Press of the 17th of May, should not be criticised just for being disrespectful, but also for harming the environment and health of those living and breathing the toxic fumes produced by burning any type of wood or rubbish in the open air. There has been more than enough recent publicity for everyone to be fully aware of the poor quality of the air which we are all breathing, and anyone selfishly lighting a bonfire clearly has no consideration for either the environment or other people. The report ends by saying the chest of drawers was eventually taken to Lynbottom Tip. That is where the garden waste and all the other rubbish should have been taken, so it may be properly processed and disposed of. As for the often used argument that running a vehicle to the tip causes just as much harm to the environment, no, it does not. Vehicle exhausts are filtered, whereas bonfire smoke, with its high level of particular pollution and cancer-causing dioxins, goes straight into the atmosphere. Better still, the Isle of Wight Council has a collection service for garden waste. It isn't free, but what price would anyone put on their health and that of their children?
This letter from Vincent Valvona, St Helens. Survey road at a better time. Ireland Road's decision to carry out a road crossing survey when the sloop at Wootton Bridge was at its busiest was a complete and utter waste of time. The sloop certainly is busy on a Sunday lunchtime, like many family pubs full of parents of young children taking advantage of the good food prices. And most roads won't be particularly busy at these times either, because people are having lunch. Island Roads would have known this, which is probably why they chose that time. What Island Roads needs to do is take surveys when the road is at its busiest. People use the sloop at these times too. That does ebb and flow, but is mostly determined by commuting and school-run traffic, such as a Friday afternoon of Mum's accident. Traffic going to and disembarking from both of Whitelink Ferry just around the corner, and also the Red Fannel Ferry at East Cowes, as as Wootton High Street is the main road from Ryde to East Cowes. Hopefully a proper survey in the summer will be more informative and accurate.
And now we go on to Wight Memories. And the first article by Alan Strode is The Art of Advertising in the 1900s. An American businessman, John Wanamaker, said in 1880, "Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which half." These two photos, taken from the original glass negatives of W.R. Hogg, a name well known in Two Island postcard collectors, make the point. Both from the early 1900s, the top photo shows Pickford's on Ryde Esplanade near the entrance to the railway station. Here you could book a train to Ningwood or a liner to New York and arrange for furniture removals at the same time, services which Pickford's, albeit under a different name, still offer to this day. Since Mr. Hogg took his photo, the posters advertising the far-flung outposts of Canada and Tunbridge Wells have all become collective items and fetch a small fortune today. The bottom photo shows the advertising hoardings along the railway line just outside Ryde St John's railway station. The advertisers here did well. At least 10 of them are still training today, and so we've got OXO, and we've got Perrier water, we've got Camp Coffee, I remember that, but I think it's gone by now, and a whole lot of other advertisements.
And we move on to Bob Seeley, the island's MP, his column, News from Westminster and the Island. Minister's visit to Isle of Wight. I was delighted to host a visit to the island earlier this month by the Senior Treasury Minister, Liz Truss. During what was her first trip to the island, she visited two of our businesses, Isle of Wight Tomatoes and MHI Vestas, whose innovation and success goes well beyond these shores. It was great to see a cabinet minister on the island. I'm working to arrange more visits by senior and influential MPs in the coming months so they can see firsthand our many and varied successes. If they come here, they're more likely to be sympathetic to our agenda to improve our economy, health, education and quality of life. Isle of Wight Council leader Dave Stewart also discussed with Liz using the island as a pilot scheme for bringing together public services, ensuring maximum efficiency so as much money as possible supports frontline services, doctors, nurses and firemen, rather than back office functions. Interaction with senior politicians is especially important given the serious local and national issues we face. One such local issue is the island planning strategy, more specifically its requirement to build 9,500 homes here in the coming 15 years. I oppose these targets because they are unrealistic. We don't have infrastructure to cope and, above all, most of the housing is not for islanders. Rather than these flawed plans, I support modest house building in existing communities for islanders young and old. I recently met Wellow residents fearful of a new town for the rural West Wight and also the West Wight Bowman in Ryde, whose archery field of 50 years is also threatened by house building. I will continue to represent the views of such communities. I want islanders to know where I stand on other national topics still dominating Parliament, and that is Brexit. The British people voted to leave, and the island voted to leave. We need to leave the EU. Politicians promised to do so. I have consistently voted for the withdrawal deal as, while not perfect, it was the best chance of getting a meaningful Brexit. Finally, I want islanders to know that despite some media reports, not in the county press, I voted against the recent extension of the Brexit process. I will always try to deliver what was promised, and I'm disappointed some MPs avoid acting on the mandate of the referendum vote.
And now we go on to My View, Malcolm Mime. EU election run-up was a damp squid. Well, what a damp squid the run-up to yesterday's Euro elections turned out to be. I didn't receive a single leaflet, not one person knocking on my door, and the only hustings event on the island saw us presented with a bunch of candidates who never seriously had a hope in hell of being elected. Representing the Labour Party at the Key Arts hustings was a guy called, Rohit Dasgupta, who nobody this side of the Solent had ever heard of. He was the fifth name on the list of Labour's candidates for the South East, so it was obvious they weren't taking the event very seriously. The day after the hustings, Rohit took to Twitter to declare that he was back in London, but still buzzing from the event. He can't get out much, poor fellow. Rohit added, Brexit had for the most part been a xenophobic far-right project. Looks like I had the audience with me there. As nearly 2/3 of the Isle of Wight voted leave, it is fair to assume the audience was not a very proportionately balanced one. The two local candidates were there. Former Councillor Darrell Pitcher, standing for UKIP, and Vix Lothian, representing the Greens. Islanders could be forgiven for presuming Pitcher and Lothian are full-time politicians, given the amount of times we've seen them running for elections. Although I didn't receive any leaflets, my two first-time voter offspring received personally addressed literature from the Brexit Party. It seemed that Nigel was the only one organised for this election. To be that organised proves that he knew that Brexit was never going to be delivered on time, and therefore knew only too well the UK would have to be involved in the EU elections, unlike the Change UK lot. A couple of months ago, I wrote how I was excited by the prospect of this new centralist party, but they've already proven they are utterly useless and seem to be nothing more than a poor man Lib Dems. Needless to say, Change UK weren't organised enough to send a representative to the Isle of Wight hustings. As no one asked for my vote, I didn't bother casting it. I was tempted to vote for the Brexit Party, purely to put two fingers up at those ugly Remainers who continue to call all Brexit voters racists and Nazis, which they obviously aren't. But I'm not someone who wants either Mrs May's idea of Brexit or a no-deal Brexit, which would leave a hard border with Ireland, so I couldn't give Nige my vote. If we can't get something other than the two aforementioned types of Brexit, I'd rather remain. At the time of writing, we don't know the results of the European elections, but here is what I think will happen. Nigel Farage will be elected and his Brexit party will win the most seats. Rohit Dasgupta won't get elected and he will probably never again be seen in these parts. Vix Lothian will still be a school teacher. UKIP will have no seats and will soon disband. And the Lib Dems will have fared well for no other reason that they were seen as the go-to party for Remain voters. As for the Tories, they've simply kept their heads down, or rather held their heads down in shame. They knew that they were in for a hiding for their disastrous handling of Brexit. If a general election is to be on the way, Captain Bob and company might be in for rude awakening.
And the second My View is from Rebecca Roncorini. People treated as collateral damage. We live in global times. The global economy and global communications mean we are connected like never before. Politics has been unmasked as overrun with the types that used to be governors of Oliver's orphanage. There's more transparency out there than at any time, much to our current politicians' dismay. I was thinking politics, as we understood it, is akin to the emperor's new clothes. We all believed we would vote a thoroughly decent person from whichever thoroughly decent party we cleaved to, up to Westminster to represent us all and put our 2 pennies into running the country. That these representatives were honest, hard-working, intelligent, humble, fair, reliable, truthful and scrupulous. That the people they represented came before party politics. What has happened is party politics has corrupted this scenario. Instead of representatives working for their constituencies and country, we have elected representatives working on behalf of their party purely for power. Isn't it time we said enough? We have witnessed people being treated contemptuously as collateral damage due to political ideology, and to my mind, it's no different from corporate manslaughter. Those in charge could have prevented the deaths, but either through accident or chillingly through design, chose not to. People are dying due to a systematic defunding of the NHS. People are dying waiting for ambulances, dying waiting for hospital beds, dying on waiting lists, dying from hospitals, acquired infections, dying because expensive drugs are denied to them, dying because there is a severe shortage of staff. People are being denied benefits or sanctioned, and some have died, usually those extremely vulnerable people who somehow slipped through all nets due to cuts. People being passed fit to work by some private company at the government's behest are dying shortly after their assessment, in abject poverty. Do you know lonely, vulnerable, ill people are living at home with maybe one tokenistic half-hour visit per day from a care agency to cover all their needs? Or that children with special needs and their families are truly suffering from lack of services? Or that we have many young people becoming carers for their parents just to plug the gap? This is just a small sample of the suffering knowingly inflicted by these party disciples. All of this is down to government policies. Is this what we elected someone to do? If you look at our MP and council, you see no quarter given to the communities that they are supposed to represent. They all simply toe their party line, irrespective of the needs and suffering of those whose interests they were elected to serve. Our local council seem determined to blot out the inconvenience of the public with a reduction in public meetings, a reduction in petitions. They are prepared to accept and a track record for not responding to letters. I believe it's time to take party politics out of government. It's time to put forward leaders with a proven track record within our community to represent us and not a party. It's time to say enough, and no more to powerful parties picking their own representatives and parachuting people into places that they have no idea about. Enough is a powerful word, and I say enough. We deserve better, much, much better.
And now we're going to look at some of the things which are for your entertainment, what's on over the next week or so. And the first one that I've got here is Isle of Wight Rock and Roll. On Saturday the 1st of June, Rock and Roll Special, Mark Keeley's Soul Rock and Roll Show, Solo Rock and Roll Show, at the Riverside Centre at 7 p.m. until late. So there we are.
And the National Gardens Scheme, Gardens Open for Charity. And this first one is Saturday the 25th of May and Sunday the 26th of May, Sunny Patch. And this is Victoria Road, Freshwater, PO 409PP. And it's between 9:30 and 4:30. And admission is £4, children free, and light refreshments. And there's another one here, also on Saturday the 25th and Sunday the 26th of May, North Grounds Farm, Appleford Road, Chale Green, PO 382AP. And again, the admission is £4 and children free. And there's homemade teas then.
And art house films at 2 island venues. Ventnor Arts Club is featuring 2 screenings next week. On Tuesday, Mary Queen of Scots, which is 15 registered, is being shown exploring the turbulent life of the charismatic Mary Stuart, played by, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Sarose Ronan. And on Thursday, Ventnor Arts Club again is screening the documentary Faces Places, featuring director Agnes Wagner and photographer and muralist J.R. The pair have a few things in common, namely a passion for images and for ways of showing, sharing and exhibiting places. The film, written and directed by the pair, follows their journey through rural France and tells the story of their friendship. Both of these start at 7:30 p.m.
And these are 3 of the many events, forthcoming events at Shanklin Theatre. First 2 are imminent. Derek Akora, Saturday the 25th of May, 7:30 p.m. And all it's got here is Derek Akora, The Eternal Life. And the other one on the 29th of May is Nick Lowe and Los Straitjackets. Wednesday the 29th of May. That's also at 7:30. And then one in September, back by popular demand, Lucy Parham Piano, Nocturne, The Romantic Life of Frédéric Chopin, with Patricia Hodge, narrator, Robert Gleinster, narrator, and that is on Sunday the 15th of September at 7 p.m. There are also a number of events coming up in May and June.
And there's a party in the woods. A party in the woods will be held at Robin Hills Amphitheatre, featuring island bands including Blonde Bombshell, Greg Barnes, Rattlesnake, Luna, Unusual Suspects, and 3010 and Day Eater. Proceeds from the event on Friday, August the 30th, will go to charities including Challenge and Adventure, the Isle of Wight Youth Trust, and White Brainy Bunch. For tickets, you visit www.challengeadventure.org.uk.
And there's a model railway show. This is at Lake Community Centre, New Road Car Park, Lake PO369LA. And it's on Saturday, June the 1st, and it's between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And admission is £3 per adult, and accompanied children can come for free.
And on Bank Holiday Monday, 27th of May, from 12 noon to 4 p.m, the place to be is Bembridge. Bembridge Street Fair welcomes you. It's one of the biggest annual street fairs on the island. Enjoy a vibrant, bustling, busy, fun day out for the whole family. Fixed and mobile stalls, from candles to cocktails. All-day entertainment, Irish dancers, magic shows, band on the run, DJ in a wheelbarrow, have your pictures taken with superheroes and join the army, plus a lot more.
And this is an advertisement from nationaltrust.org.uk/Isle of Wight. And peek behind the doors of Mottison Manor. And the manor open days are Sunday the 26th and Monday the 27th of May. And Sunday 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Monday 10:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. And it's open for just one special weekend a year.
And there's comedy at the Quay on Saturday the 22nd of June. The tickets for that are £10 or £15 with food. It starts at 8 p.m, remember it's the 22nd of June, and the lineup is Ryan Mould, Matt Bragg, Dan Mayo, Mark Rowe, Harvey Hawkins, and you can get more information from Key Arts.
And this is about a flower festival, and it's celebrating Bembridge Holy Trinity Church in Bembridge. Saturday the 25th to Wednesday the 29th of May, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday 12 noon, wedding. Sunday 10:30, parish communion. 6:30 p.m, songs of praise. Wednesday the 29th, 7:30 p.m, organ recital by Victor Lawrence. And the entrance is free, donations welcome, good access for people with disabilities, and it's on the number 8 bus route.
And now we're going to read a series of events for the Isle of Wight Jazz Weekend 2019. And the weekend for the Jazz Festival starts on Wednesday the 29th of May. And that is 10 a.m. to 3 p.m, jazz tuition course day, strings music venue, £50 or £25 or £10, and this covers both days. And at 7 p.m, the same date, Wednesday the 29th of May, Tim Klipowis Trio in Newport Methodist Church, £10 or £5.
And on Thursday the 30th of May, there's between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m, there's a second part of jazz tuition course, day 2, string music venue again, and it's £50, £25 or £10, and that covers both of the days. Between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. on the same day, B students and tutor concert, Apollo Theatre, free but donations are invited. And 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. that evening, C, Nick Page and Gary Plumley's Coltranel. So it's Coltrane, I think. Apollo Theatre, £8 or £5.
And on Friday the 31st of May, 12 p.m. to 3 p.m, open air jazz outside Newport Minster, free. At 2:30 p.m. to 4:35 p.m, Gabriel Lachin Trio, Newport Methodist Church, £8 and £5. 10 p.m. to 7:15 p.m. That should be a.m. surely. Anyway, Kate Williams, 4+3, meets Georgia Manchio, Finding Home, Apollo Theatre, £12 or £5. And then from 8:30 to 10:30 on the 31st of May, Jivin' Miss Davy, Key Arts Theatre, £10 or £5.
And on the Saturday, the 1st of June, 10:30 a.m. to 12 p.m, Jukebox Jazz, that's traditional jazz, outside Newport Minster, that's free. Then 12:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m, That Jazz, Newport Conservative Club, that's free again. 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, South Wight Jazz Club, Bargeman's Rest, downstairs, free. And 1 p.m. to 3 p.m, G, The Nat Gonella Story, Apollo Theatre, and that's £11 or £5. And then at 3:15 p.m. to 5:50 p.m, H, a gramophone party, and that's at Bargeman's Rest again, upstairs, £8 or £5. 3:30 p.m. to 5:15 p.m, I at Camilla George Quartet, Newport Methodist Church, that's £10 or £5. 5:30 p.m. to 6:45 p.m, J, Mark Nightingale with the Isle of Wight Youth Jazz Orchestra, £7 stroke £5. And 7:15 p.m. to 8:30 p.m, K, Tribute to Horace Silver, Newport Methodist Church, £8 stroke £5. And 9 p.m. to 11:15 p.m, L, Ian Shaw plus Ian Bellamy plus Jamie Saphir, and that's at the Key Arts Theatre, and that's £12 stroke £5.
And the final day of the Isle of Wight Jazz Weekend is Sunday the 2nd of June, and it starts with a Jazz Eucharist at Newport Minster. It's free, but there is a retiring collection, and that's 10:30 to 11:30. 12 p.m. to 2 p.m, the Sunshine Kings at the Bargeman's Rest upstairs, £10 or £5. At 2:30 to 3:45, Jim Mullen and Zoe Francis Trio, Apollo Theatre, £8 and £5. At 5 p.m. to 7:15 p.m, Pete Long's Echoes of Ellington, the Medina Theatre, £14, £5, and this is only available from the venue. The ticket is only available from the venue, as is the final one, 8:30 to 10:35 p.m, Derek Nash's Sax Appeal in the Medina Theatre, 11 to 5.
And this section is sport on the Isle of Wight, and pair signed for extra year at Pompey. 2 young players have got to deal with Pompey. Pompey have offered exciting young island prospects Joe Hancock and Leon Maloney a third-year scholarship. Leon, 17, and Joe, 18, are among just 3 of the club's brightest academy players poised to sign a new one-year deal at Fratton Park. And it's a reward for the Islanders' consistency during their 2 years playing for Pompey Academy. Both have made their first team debuts under boss Kenny Jackett.
And history was made as cricket fans flock to New Close. I'm told that there were quite a lot of people there. Around 2,000 people depended on New Close Cricket Ground. All these concerned with New Close and local cricket have been completely bowled over by the success of hosting the first county championship match on the island for 57 years. Bumper crowds of around 2,000 people at New Close enjoyed the first 3 days' play between Hampshire and Nottingham, a spectacle of the late Brian Gardner, the businessman who dreamt of creating a county standard ground at New Close, and he would have been proud of it. Poignantly, his son Martin, New Close's chairman of trustees, rang the bell to mark when the players emerged onto the field of play on Monday. The teams last played on the island in a county championship match in June 1957 at the former J.S. Wight ground in Cowes.
An article here about squash. Young Islander whitewashes all in major championship. Amelie is big European Euro hit for England. By John Marino, who's the sports editor. The high bar God's Hill teenager Amelie Horworth has set in less than 7 years playing squash could well see her reach the very top, according to her island-based coach, after she starred for England in helping them to win the European Under-15 Championships. Amelie, the youngest of a team of 5, one of 2 girls, won all her matches in the tournament held at Eindhoven, Holland. The number 2 ranked Under-15 girl in England comprehensively beat Hungary's Lorena Varga 3-0, that's 11-2, 11-1 and 11-0, and Varvara Kliova of the Russian Federation by the same scoreline in the group stages, 11-5, 11-1 and 11-6.
And young Islanders put in outstanding performances in the Hampshire Athletics Track and Field Championships, none more than Ben Holdsworth, who was crowned county champion in dramatic style. At the event held at Portsmouth's Mountbatten Centre, which attracted leading athletes from across Hampshire, Ben won the Under-20 men's pentathlon, having amassed 2,637 points.
And now we go on to some further news from the county press this week. Staff told to get on their bikes. School staff will swap cars for electric bikes under a new scheme launched in Newport this week. An electric bike share scheme, a first for the island, is being run by Wight Cycle Hire with support from the Isle of Wight Council. Wight Cycle Hire has given e-bikes to the Isle of Wight Education Federation, IWEF, for car-free journeys between Carisbrooke College and Medina College and the sixth form campus in central Newport. The bikes are expected to replace up to 4,000 car journeys each year, reducing local congestion and carbon emissions. The project is supported by the Council's Sustainable Travel Access Fund, using funding secured from the Department for Transport. School's project manager at Wight Cycle Hire, Ross Edmonds, said, "We're delighted to support the IWF with the launch of the island's first electric bike share scheme." Executive head teacher for the Island Innovation Trust, Matthew Parr Berman, said, "I'm confident that this scheme will be popular amongst staff."
Second offence for drink driver. A Cowes woman has been banned from the roads for 3 years after being caught drink driving for the second time. Jessica May Ridlings, 25 of Park Road, was first convicted of drink driving in 2012. She was convicted for a second time at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court last Tuesday. Ridlings admitted driving a Volkswagen Golf on South Street, Newport, on April the 28th, while she was over the drink drive limit. She gave a breath alcohol reading of 49. The legal limit is 35. Anne Smout, prosecuting, said Ridling was stopped by police who were on mobile patrol at Coppins Bridge and spotted her car had no rear lights on. When she was pulled over on South Street, the officer could smell alcohol on her breath. Barry Arnett, for Ridlings, said she was only driving because she was being a good Samaritan and going to help a friend in need. He said the consequences of a ban would be quite dire for her, as she was a single working parent with 2 very young children. She relied on her car to drive to her waitressing job and to take her children to nursery. Second offences of drink driving carry a mandatory 3-year ban, which magistrate imposed, along with a £160 fine. Ridling was also ordered to pay £85 cost and a £30 surcharge.
Art for nursing home residents. Residents from Springfield and Highfield nursing homes express themselves through art thanks to a collaboration for independent arts. The Newport charity, which uses art to improve people's well-being and reduce social isolation, helped residents prepare for their first art exhibition. During 6 painting workshops, residents explored different artistic genres and styles. Artist practitioner Lee Jackman guided and supported the sessions, supported by activity coordinators Angela Edwards and Shani Johnson. Afterwards, Highfield in Ryde hosted an exhibition to showcase the finished artwork and share the paintings with friends, relatives, staff and fellow art enthusiasts. Kerry Tyndall, programmes manager at Independent Arts, said, "The benefits of engagement with the arts for health and well-being are multiple, helping to create a feeling of calm and improve self-esteem. The sessions can also help improve cognitive functioning and provide an outlet for self-expression and creativity. Many of the attendees have never painted before, but embrace the chance to use the paint palette and create more than 30 pieces." Sindhu Neville, care home manager, said, One resident is living with advanced dementia and he painted a beautiful portrait of his wife. Art gave this man a unique way to communicate in a meaningful way with his wife once again. We believe it shows how given the opportunity, someone living with dementia can continue to live a vibrantly creative life.
And with that, Just wish you all a very happy bank holiday and hope the weather keeps nice. And so it's goodbye from Imelda.
And it's goodbye from Leicester.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. The right to exercise your vote and the right to exercise. After the UK's arrangements to enable blind people to vote were declared illegal, why we could have something to learn from Estonia. And how one gym in Sussex has put out the welcome mat.
Have a sit down.
Thank you. I am sitting down, I'm knackered. Just get my breath back.
More from Uckfield later in the programme. But first, there's another opportunity to go to the polls this week with the European elections. But according to the High Court here in the UK, for visually impaired people, the method of voting will fail the tests of accessibility or secrecy. The idea of a piece of plastic with X-sized holes in which you can only indicate your candidate of choice with sighted help doesn't cut it. In a moment, we'll be finding out how other Europeans will be casting their votes this week. But you've been telling us about some of your own voting experiences. For Christopher Kennedy, for example, secrecy was the concern. He declined the polling officials' offer to stay with him and complete the form for him, even though he was finding using the template difficult. He goes on, once I'd marked 3 candidates, I continued to study the sheet just to check that I'd got it right. The polling officer quickly tapped me on the shoulder and said, I see that you've selected 3 candidates and I wanted to make sure you know you can't mark any more or you'll spoil your ballot. Clearly, says Christopher, my vote was far from private. Not everyone dismisses the templates out of hand. Brian Gaff from Chessington says he's had little trouble with the template, although he recalls one occasion when the ballot form was so long it was actually rolled up like a toilet roll and trailed on the floor, becoming a safety hazard. But frustration with the system has led Ruth Gibbons from Walsall to give up voting altogether. She told us why.
If I could find out where the nearest polling station was, because I'd have to ring the council to do that. The cards always come just in standard print, so they're not readable for me. But even if I could get there, I wouldn't know exactly where the school or hall was.
What would it take to get you voting again?
Probably it would take vote by phone, which they can do all over Europe for the Eurovision, so I can't imagine why on earth they can't do a vote by phone in Britain.
Well, perhaps Ruth should consider moving to the other side of the world. Australians went to vote at the weekend, delivering the kind of poll-contradicting result we're becoming used to. But we were more interested in how Fiona Woods cast her vote. She told me from Sydney, New South Wales.
This time being a federal election, the accessible voting method that was offered was telephone voting, and it was assisted by a person. For the most recent New South Wales state election, we had another system which offered internet voting, or you could vote using your phone, using your keypad, but that was completely automated, so you didn't need to interact with a person, or you could choose to interact with a person as well. First, I should probably explain that in Australia, voting is compulsory. So I suppose it's very desirable that there be a system that is accessible to everyone, because you're going to pay a penalty if you don't vote. Secondly, we have a preferential voting system so that you don't just vote for one candidate, you have to vote for, in my electorate there were 5 candidates, but in some electorates there would be up to 10 or more, and you have to vote for, if not all, then definitely 6 of those people in order. And then thirdly, we have 2 houses of parliament and both of them are elected. So we have to vote for the House of Representatives and for the Senate. And in New South Wales, there were 136 people you could choose from.
And can you just explain what you do to do that, to cast your vote?
You have to make a declaration that you're a blind or vision impaired person who can't vote using a ballot paper without assistance. And you tell them your electorate. You can get voting information in accessible formats. So I got a list of my candidates and a list of the Senate candidates. I got them in Braille, but I could have got them in large print or online, and I think audio as well. I was asked would I like to receive my registration code as an SMS or an email, and you also have to come up with a PIN code. And at no point do I give my name. So those two pieces of information are enough to tell that person my electorate. She goes and gets the correct, or he goes and gets the correct ballot paper, and then they get a second person, has to come and watch them fill in my ballot paper. Then I tell them exactly what I want to do on the ballot paper, and I have done this in the past. I have chosen to vote below the line in the Senate, which is where you individually number the number of senators, and you can imagine that probably took, last time I did it, about 40 minutes. And the person will read back to you exactly what you've chosen at the end of the process.
But it is quite a major exercise. It obviously takes time. It's not like popping into the poll and doing your vote with a scrawl, but with somebody helping you.
In the past, I would have had to go with either someone I trusted, or I could have asked an electoral official, and we sort of stand in these cardboard booths, and so you have to whisper to that person, you know, John Smith, number 1, Fred Jones, number 2, you know, like, and it's quite difficult to go through that process a number of times and to feel any sense of secrecy or privacy or anything else. So even though this can be time consuming, I still think it's better, and it probably only took, it took longer for me probably to explain it to you than to actually do it.
Fiona Woods. So how will other Europeans be casting their votes later this week? And what do we have to learn from them? The European Blind Union describes itself as the voice of the 30 million blind people in Europe. It's calling for a consistent standard which establishes accessibility and privacy, and they've produced a report which highlights who's doing it well and who isn't. It looked broadly at 5 methods by which visually impaired people can vote: with an assistant, using a tactile device, like the template we've been talking about, voting by mail, voting in advance, and electronic voting. Benedict van den Boom is very much involved in the campaign. He's International Relations Officer with the German Federation of the Blind and Partially Sighted, and he's been telling me from Berlin about some of the report's findings.
My home country, Germany, has been using the stencil or the template since the turn of the century. And there's actually trials going on in the Netherlands, for example, to introduce stencils. And what we found to be quite important, except for a design of the stencil or the template that includes both braille and large print, is to have an audio file that gives additional information. In Germany, we sent this to all template users before the election so that they can acquaint themselves with the content. In the Netherlands, in the trials, the audio system was installed in the polling station so that voters were guided through the template and the content of the ballot at the time of voting.
Now, you looked at 5 ways of voting. No mention of telephone voting in that list of 5, although, again, as we've heard in the programme, it's been used just last weekend in Australia.
The way we approached telephone voting was based on the evaluation of previous rounds of voting in Australia, where someone at the other end of the line records the vote and marks it on a paper ballot. First, you do not know whether the person on the other end of the line really takes the vote as indicated, and it's not secret.
But Fiona was the Australian lady we talked to. She did talk about an automated system that they were using, which would get over that problem, wouldn't it?
If a system is automated, this would certainly have the advantage that many people feel more comfortable with the operation of a phone than with the operation of a computer.
Now, I said at the beginning of the programme that we had much to learn from Estonia. What exactly are they doing?
In Estonia, it has been possible for a number of years now to cast the vote electronically through a state-owned internet platform. Citizens log in with their citizen data, have all the information about the ballot in their respective constituency available in accessible online formats, and can then select their preferred option on this digital ballot, click on send, and even can resend a different choice if they change their mind closer to election day. We have asked the Estonian Federation of the Blind about the system, and it has been indicated to us that it is almost fully accessible to visually impaired users, which is optimal because it guarantees a vote in secret, it guarantees an independent vote, and it guarantees that voters have exactly the same amount of information as anyone else. between a quarter and a third of the overall population use electronic voting or internet voting in the case of Estonia, which shows that it's also accepted by everyone else. It's not a niche solution for visually impaired people, but really for the general population.
Benedict van den Boom. And we can only repeat that the Cabinet Office has told us that they are looking into possible solutions in light of the High Court's decision that the current options are not lawful. Now, if you fancy a workout, as well as exercising your democratic rights, gyms can pose access problems as well. For quite a while, Bex Kenton from Uckfield in Sussex avoided going to the gym. The introduction of digital technology has made the machinery and the equipment harder to use for some. Exercise bikes and rowing machines are often programmed by touchscreens, which means, yet again, we need sighted assistance. But when a friend told Bex about the CrossFit gym in her local town, she decided to give it a try. She contacted the owner, Krish Stevens, who set about making the gym more accessible for her. Tom Walker has been along to find out about the results and discovered Bex listening to the warm-up instructions on digital tin lids.
Wrist warm-up, 10 kettlebell goblet squats, 5 heavy single-arm kettlebell swings on each arm and 10 empty bar muscle cleans with 10 front squats.
Everybody else gets their warm-up information from a TV screen up high on the wall, which I can't see. So this makes it a lot more accessible.
Bex, you're about to start your warm-up. Where are you going to first?
I'm going to the bike. So Verity's just going to read the calories because I can't read the bike.
You're up to 4 calories, so 20 for this warm-up.
We actually met here, but we actually live only a few doors away from each other.
Yep, so we make sure that we come down to as many sessions as possible and we can sit and chat about it afterwards, about what worked well and what we're really proud about.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
19. One more calorie. And 20, you're done, well done.
Exhausted already?
Yep.
How long have you been coming to the gym for?
I did my intro on September the 4th, so around 7 months now.
And what were you doing before then?
I had a year out of the gym. I didn't go to the gym at all. But I actually have been going to regular traditional gyms since I was a teenager. But they just don't offer anything. I've been to several ones and they just leave you to your own devices. And when touchscreens came in, you're just kind of like, what do you do?
Okay, so you can just about see where that red box is,
yep.
Yeah? So Beck's going to tap it with your foot so you know where it is. Just have a little check so you know how high it is and then jump. Perfect. How did that feel? That was fun. Should we go up one?
Hi, I'm Krish Stevens and I own CrossFit Uckfield, where Bex trains. CrossFit is a combination of Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting and gymnastics movements with some cardio thrown in an ever-changing combination of movements.
You've worked closely with Bex since she started coming here, some 8 or 9 months ago. Yeah. What support do you provide her with?
She's partially sighted, so she can see contrast. So there's a lot of black in the gym. So we put yellow and black tape on steps and things like that, and we put white tape around the rings so that she can see them, and we just sort of make her aware when there's obstacles. Pretty much everything that we have programmed on the board, she can do. Some things we have to scale and some things we have to adapt. Some things she needs a bit more support with than other things, but we haven't found anything yet that she can't do.
And then the clip goes on.
So when you first started coming here, what were you like? Describe yourself.
I was overweight. I've lost nearly 3 stone since then. I couldn't jump on a box. I couldn't run 100 metres, let alone 400 metres, which I've done since I've joined here. I couldn't lift a lot of weight. I couldn't do a lot of things, basically, physically, because I'd just been so used to going on a bike for 20 minutes or walking on a treadmill at high speed for 20 minutes, just small stuff. So you never really improved.
And since you came here, how have you changed as a person as well as physically?
I don't feel so isolated anymore. I have something that I want to go and do, gets me out of the house. I'm a lot fitter, so I get out a lot more. I'm social a lot more. So it just improves every aspect of your life, really.
So this is a family affair, really, then, isn't it, Bex? Your mum here?
I kind of convinced my mum to start, really. But at the moment, she's just doing Pilates, aren't you?
Yeah, just starting with Pilates.
Yeah.
How well has Bex done since she started coming?
The most amazing thing to me is her balance. She can balance now, and in all her life she's never been able to balance. So that's really good, and a lot more fluidity in her movement.
I felt like I was dying. Yeah. It was hard though.
Do you enjoy the fact that you can actually talk to people as you go around?
Yeah, in regular gyms you have things like people on headphones. There's no headphones, they're actually banned. So people actually talk and you get to know them. I mean, I wouldn't have known that my neighbour 3 doors down on my road came to the same gym as I did.
Do you feel that it is part of your commitment as a person, if you like, to be as diverse as possible and as inclusive as possible?
Absolutely. I sat down with my other coaches a while back and we kind of worked out what is our mission statement, what is it that we want to do, and we want to make this gym accessible to anyone who wants to train here.
The final round has just started. Bex is lifting the weight again, and even I can see that she really is looking a little bit tired now. Have a sit down.
Thank you. I am sitting down, I'm knackered. Just get my breath back.
What do you hope to achieve longer term?
Just to be as fit and healthy as I can be, and hopefully maybe next year or whenever I'm up to it to do a couple of competitions just for fun.
Bex Kenton, so it begs the question, why can't they do that everywhere? Let's have your reactions and we'll attempt to put your points to some of the larger gym chains. Now, on last week's In Touch, we heard the moving reflections from listener Catherine McAteer on whether, after 40-odd years, she had accepted her blindness. She got in touch with us as a response to a previous discussion about the varying ways in which people try to come to terms with losing their sight. Well, another Catherine Dembeck, also felt compelled to email her thoughts. About 7 months ago, the retina in Catherine's right eye suddenly detached. And although after a couple of operations there's been some improvement, she's also feeling grief for that loss. She's been explaining why that discussion struck a chord with her.
It was the need to adjust to a huge change of no longer having perfect vision, of no longer having a right eye that worked, and just the need to accept that. And in the programme you were asking, well, have you come to terms with that? Have you accepted it? And that question really struck a chord with me because I thought, this is the stage I'm at. Nothing can be done surgically for my right eye anymore. So I've simply got to accept it. I do have sight still in one eye, and so I realise I'm far better off than many people. But nevertheless, it's an adjustment.
And it's still very personal to each individual. What's the impact of your sight loss at the moment on you?
I'm pleased I can do everything, but more slowly. I go downstairs carefully, hold on to the handrail because I look down and I can't see as well as I could. But I'm managing to function, but everything feels a bit different. They talk about life-changing injuries. Well, this has changed my life to an extent, and that's what I'm coming to terms with. But I think it's a process, and I'm only 8 months having had this happen, so it still feels comparatively early days.
Catherine Dembeck. And that's it for today. We are getting some wonderful responses from you at the moment on all kinds of subjects, but we're greedy. We want more. You can contact our phone line on which you can leave your comments. That number is 0161 836 1338 1338. You can also visit our website from where you can download tonight's and other editions of In Touch. From me, Peter Wight, producer Lee Kumatat and the team, goodbye.